This week we are looking at the latest development from the IL-2 multiplayer combat box server, and it's a special one because they did something very different. If you have been in the IL-2 multiplayer scene for a while, then you surely know about combat box, but if you're new to the multiplayer scene, then you may not know that combat box has been around for 2.5+ years, and along with the Finnish virtual pilot server, it's one of the top 2 servers in terms of population in IL-2. Now, as I generally say with my weekly phrase, this channel really focuses on multiplayer sim gameplay, so if you're into that, please subscribe. And it stays true to that statement. It makes sense to dive into combat box because they are one of the premier IL-2 places to play. This video will be very similar to my Finnish video where I broke down the mechanics of that server, and because this new combat box mission is so different from all the other ones they've done, I thought this would be a great opportunity to shed some light on the server. So what's different? To date, combat box has really revolved around very curated scenario-based missions that are historically inspired, which would last a few hours and then it would go on to a completely different mission. This new mission is unique because it's dynamic. The objectives change in real time while still retaining combat box's curated plain set and historically inspired setting. This new mission is called Rush to Berlin, and it revolves around the Allies finishing their liberation of the Netherlands and their launch of Operation Plunder, or the Western invasion of Germany. One of the key objectives of this mission is to break the combat box meta of revolving around fixed targets in their missions. So this is really spicing things up where you're going to be playing the same mission, but the state of the map is going to be different. Who owns what and where are planes needed is going to feel different now. This mission has several small objectives which only require 2 or even only just 1 attacker in order to flip it. As one side pushes deeper into the enemy lines, then larger objectives and even airfields become available to capture. One side wins when they control 85 to 90% of the objectives. So I thought that the best way to explain how this is dynamic and what the mechanics actually are was by showing you guys. Now, the combat box admins had a open beta testing night where they invited the community to come play, so I hopped in there to check it out, and this 110 in front of me is Alonso, who's one of the admins of the server, and we are attacking an allied bridge. And you can see here that the mission editors did a really good job of making this objective actually look really realistic. Alonso takes some flak hits and I support him by strafing this flak gun. And he goes ahead and drops his bombs, and he drops them perfectly on both ends, and the bridge explodes. So we are pulling out of our run to go hit another target, and I will be checking my map constantly, and the reason for that is I'm waiting for the objective to change hands, basically to go from Allied to German. Now, one super important mechanic to understand is the objectives are mirrored. What I mean by that is that even though we knocked out the Allied bridge and that objective will appear German on the map soon, the location of the new German objective will be located close by, but it isn't the same exact bridge. The way it works is that as an objective is destroyed, the other side's mirror becomes activated and it's auto-repaired to full strength, and then it appears on the map. The actual assets from the active objective or the deactivated objective are always visible in the game. It's just that one is active and the other one is not. So you have to be really careful to make sure that if you're coming in for a run, that you're not hitting, or that you are hitting the right one. So just keep that in mind. I feel like it's going to be a little tricky until people start to memorize like where everything is, but the map icons, in my experience applying this or just one night, they're really accurate. And also keep in mind that you can see myself on the map, or I can see myself on the map, and that's because it's a beta night, so they allowed this to be on, but in the actual server you can't tell where you are at all times. You have to actually navigate. So I'm flipping back and forth on the map, seeing if we hit it or not, and we're still heading toward the new objective. And just gonna look for the map. And one great thing about combat box is they play the Rhineland map, which is one of the newest, actually the newest map in IL-2, so it looks great. And you can see that they've also started to implement the smoke objectives, which I don't think I've seen too much on combat box, but it is used all the time in Finnish now to identify the front line. In this instance, this objective, there's smoke there because it's just in the middle of the town, and it's supposed to signify that a town is under siege. So when I flip back to the map here, we can see that the Dinkel rail bridge has switched sides and now is owned by the German team. So if the Allies want to push the front line back, they're gonna have to go bomb that objective. As we approach this objective, I want to talk about the server in general and some unique things about it. If you are new to the IL-2 multiplayer scene and you're coming from DCS, especially if you're coming from Cold War, I think you might really like the server. Cold War server I like to describe as being very similar to Combat Box because both are revolving around like really well curated or historically inspired missions. I think that if you want to kind of experience the same thing in IL-2, Combat Box is probably the place to go. And something else that's very neat about Combat Box is they actually have a AI-controlled GCI that works through with SRS. So you can take off and designate yourself as a flight lead. You can say for fighter or bomber. And the GCI will note that and kind of categorize you as that. And you can call to the AI GCI and say, hey, say your call sign and say you need cover, or you intend to bomb a certain target, and the AI will actually call out to other untasked fighters in the area to go and vector them to your position to go help cover you, which I think is a really great feature. And I don't think I've ever seen that happen, even in DCS, if I think about it. So I think that's really neat. Again, all about being very historically inspired and very immersive. Even the way that they place objectives on the map like makes it feel really real. And the other really interesting thing I think about this is that we have a choice in IL-2, and I think we're really lucky because even though IL-2 is a smaller game in terms of population with DCS, I think the multiplayer scene is healthier in IL-2, and that's because we have a choice. So with Combat Box, if you want to go like really, more historically accurate, and if you want to like focus mostly on the Western Front, like Combat Box is your server. And if you want to do like more dynamic campaign and have the full plane set, then like Finish is your server. And in DCS, each individual era like really only has one server, and they never have pop all the time, and it's always kind of like, oh, can I play today or can I not? And you just don't always really have a choice. But in IL-2 you always do, which I think is great. Now this objective that we're going on to is an artillery position, and the contrast you were seeing come off the ground was actually rockets that were firing, which is really neat. And the rockets are actually flying in the air, and you can see them landing in the city, which I think is really great. I am purposely not going to be breaking down all the objectives and what they all are because I don't really want to ruin the surprise. And I think one neat thing about me playing this was finding out like, oh, this is what this objective is about, and this is what it actually looks like. So I'll leave the discovery part up to you guys because I think it'll be, I don't know, kind of fun to see something all new. The last thing I want to mention is kind of pivot towards speculation, but talk about like the avenues of like what I see the potential with this. And I see two things. One, I think that it'll be really interesting to, instead of with Finish where you have a dynamic campaign that's playing over the course of weeks or even a month, like, that's interesting and that's great, and that's something that I'm really into. But if you're someone that, you want to experience from start to finish and have a whole story play out, and the story being a dynamic campaign, that's going to be possible with this, which I think is really great. And again, it's all about having a choice and identifying what you want and jumping into it and playing. And for a couple of hours you're going to be able to witness and experience a full dynamic campaign, have a story unfold. What did one side do and what did the other side react, and how did they counterattack it, and all that. I think that's really great. And I also think that this will be really neat to see how they apply this technology to some of the existing maps and some of the newer ones. My mind especially goes to Market Garden, and again, this is like speculation. Like Market Garden would be really neat is if like the paired troop positions can grow as more paratroopers land, maybe for the Normandy map for D-Day, as more troops land or as the coastal defenses get knocked out, then the Allied beachhead will grow. I think that'll be really, really neat, and I could definitely see myself getting into that. So all in all, I think this is a very neat step in the evolution of the IL-2 multiplayer scene. I think you guys should check it out. If you found this video interesting, then please consider subscribing, and I hope you guys have a good day. Thank you.
Yeah.